Devastating wildfires are ravaging parts of the Big Island and the island of Maui.
Now, at this hour, at least 3 dozen people are confirmed dead. Thousands of people have been displaced. Hurricane-force winds are fueling the fast-moving fire. It nearly destroyed the town of Lahaina. More than 270 structures have been damaged, and officials say thousands of tourists have also been evacuated from Maui, while visitors to the island are being asked right now to leave as soon as possible. Joining us now is Dustin Kaleopu. He and his grandfather made a harrowing escape from Lahaina as the flames engulfed the city. We are thankful that you made it out safely. Share with us what happened and how you got your grandfather out.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, as it was for so many people with the hurricane force winds, the fire moved very quickly and we left with nothing but the clothes on our backs. The smoke was starting to come through our windows. By the time we got in our car, our neighbor's yard was on fire. There were strangers in our yard with their water hoses trying to put fires out. But it happened very quickly, and we were some of the lucky ones. I know so many people were not able to make it out of their homes, and we're starting to see that now as the death toll has risen and it continues to rise. And I would not be surprised if it doesn't reach triple digits today.
Wow. It is hard to see these images, and we're so grateful that you and your grandfather were able to get out. Do you know anything else about other family members, about your neighbors? Have you been able to connect with others?
When we evacuated, we made it very quickly compared to some people to the opposite side of the island. So we've not been back to Lahaina. But currently, there's been a large group of community members trying to step in and fill in the gaps where service is needed to help out those people that are still on the west side of the island. So I know people are making their way out there today with food and supplies and clothing, water. There's no electricity, no running water in West Maui right now. So community members have been organizing for the last 2 days since the fire started on how to get these supplies back to the folks in Lahaina.
The images, the footage we're seeing from Maui, it just looks completely apocalyptic. People were jumping into the ocean to stay safe. The death toll is mounting. I'm just wondering, from your point of view, how much of a warning did you get? And how much of like a safety passageway out were you aware of? It seemed like this caught everyone off guard.
There was no warning, and I commend the fire and police for the hard work that they were doing. The way the fire moved, it was so quick that there was no time for anyone to be coming through the streets on the megaphone telling us to evacuate. It was word of mouth. We had to figure it out for ourselves. But I know the fire department and the police department was already working so tirelessly to help the folks that they could. And that's just what it was. We had to figure it out.
I see that you are in, it looks like Pukalani right now, and that's about a 30-some miles from the worst of it, from your home. And tell us, are you staying with family members there? What was it like to try and find shelter? What was that escape like, and the search for a safe place to find refuge?
Unlike many people that I know, we luckily have family members that are spread out across the island, and we had a cousin call us and say that her home was open to us. There's about 13 of us staying here right now. I have my mom, my brother, my grandpa, my dad, my stepdad. We had family visiting us from the island of Molokai. We're just grateful. Not many people have the ability to be in a comfortable home like we do. A lot of people are still finding refuge in shelters, camping at beaches, or staying in their cars.
It sounds like you have the most important thing, 13 of your family members all around you, supporting you. You're all together and safe. I'm wondering if you know at all the condition of your home, or if you're thinking, maybe it's too early to think, if you'll ever be able to go back, if there's anything to go back to.
I've seen the aerial footage, and there's nothing to go back to for anyone in the whole town. All of my neighborhood was completely destroyed. My grandparents' house, completely destroyed. My mother's house, my brother's house, everyone that I know, I've seen their houses just brought down to piles of ash. There's nothing recognizable in the rubble, and I wouldn't know what I was looking at if I were to make it back home, or at least to where home used to be.
Dustin, a lot of people know Maui from vacations and from images of Hawaii, but Lahaina has a particular importance for Hawaiian culture, for the Hawaiian people. Talk to us about the significance of your hometown, of your cultural heritage, and some of what was lost in this fire.
Absolutely. Lahaina was the first capital of the Hawaiian Kingdom, and a lot of the structures, a lot of the historical sites were landmarks representing that time in our history. There was also the plantation era where many of our family members came from different countries overseas to work on the sugar and pineapple plantations and help to build this community. And it's just a lot of different history. But what I shared with other folks is that for the Hawaiian people especially, we never had a written language, and our history was recorded orally through song and dance and chant. And we'll continue to have those memories, those stories to tell. It's unfortunate that we don't have the memorabilia, the artifacts anymore, but as a people, we're strong enough to keep that spirit of Lahaina alive and keep that memory going of what we knew and loved.
Well, Dustin, we so appreciate you sharing that with us, as well as how harrowing the past few days have been. It's encouraging to know you've got your family there with you in a safe place now. Please do stay in contact with us, because we understand it'll be a very difficult number of weeks ahead, and we send you all of our support.
Thank you. Aloha.
And as we touched on, drought conditions in Hawaii are playing a role in an effort to tamp down the deadly wildfires.
Meteorologist Jen Carfagno from our partners at the Weather Channel is following the weather there, as well as the threat of severe storms bearing down on the southeast. Jen.
Good day to you, Lana and Errol. We are still following the weather across Hawaii, and especially, of course, focusing in on Maui. The concern has been the very strong winds that fan those flames, and those will be abating a bit. Now, we still have a very strong area of high pressure up to the north, and that pressure gradient associated with that was really the big driver of the wind. But in Dora, Hurricane Dora, well to the south here, really put a little perturbation in that field and gave us those really intense winds that we dealt with. So now that everything is shifting a little bit, the concern is that things are still very dry, and what we need is some rain to come on in. The new drought monitor showing a severe drought on the island of Maui. More than 80% of the entire island string has at least some form of drought here, and it really has gotten bad over the past 3 months very rapidly with the dry conditions. So this looks at the wind forecast that we have, and we'll get into those more traditional afternoon gusty winds that we get with the trade winds here over the Hawaiian Islands, and that will be the case today. Maybe some showers do come through with that here, at least in the morning hours. Other showers we've got to watch across the lower 48 will be into the mid-Atlantic, and those could be severe. We're keeping an eye on North Carolina, got to keep an eye on southern New England as well, watching storms here overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, then moving off the coast. And it's been a pretty stormy pattern, and that certainly continues for us today.
Jonathan McNamara joins us now. He's the national spokesperson for the American Red Cross. Jonathan, looking at these images, Errol and I were remarking that it seems incomprehensible that this is the beautiful, lush islands of Hawaii. Thousands of people have been displaced from their homes. The reports are horrific. How are you helping people there?
Well, for starters, these images remind me of what I saw when I was on the ground in California, responding to the Red Cross efforts to help those communities devastated by wildfires. And I can say from the Red Cross perspective, it's that previous experience that is driving our relief efforts here on the ground in Hawaii, whether it's the surge materials like the ones that are behind me or Red Cross volunteers from across our network. We had 6 volunteers leave from Virginia, where I'm based today, and they will join with hundreds of colleagues from the Red Cross system to support what was already a base of Red Cross workers who are based in Hawaii that are really the lead for our response, and that's supporting those emergency shelters that have been open, as well as delivering relief supplies and disaster mental health, which is a really critical piece of this response effort, is helping to deal with the stress and anxiety and fear that can come with what's such a devastating event.
Disaster mental health is certainly something that will be needed, because yesterday we learned shelters in Maui were at capacity. Phone lines were down, so people couldn't call 911 if they needed to. Tell me about how much of a challenge all of that is today as far as helping people who are trying to seek help.
Yeah, and we're hearing that from our partners on the ground. And that's why so many relief agencies are coordinating as a part of this effort so that we can make sure we understand fully what the scope of this damage is. And then that we can do everything in our capacity as an organization to partner with those local officials to make sure that we can deliver those relief supplies and volunteers to the correct locations, as well as using our full network to use various tools to communicate to these relief efforts to the people who are on the ground. That effort is going to be ongoing and will adapt based on what we're hearing on the ground as we leverage our full capacity as an organization to deliver those relief supplies as quickly as possible. Because we understand when you're dealing with an event of this magnitude, help getting into those communities is critical and as fast as possible. And I can tell you from the Red Cross perspective, that's where we're so focused on this effort as we mobilize a national response to this event.
And Jonathan, we know that the wildfires moved in so fast, fueled by these winds, that people have been jumping into the oceans to try and escape. What do we know about the number of people that are still missing?
Obviously, the people who can best answer that are the folks that are on the ground directly in these impacted areas. And that's what our Red Cross focus is coordinating with those state and local officials so that we have a full understanding of what the impact is. We know that those numbers are going to likely rise as we move over the coming days. And that's our message to the people that are on the ground in Hawaii. I saw firsthand how impacted these types of wildfires can be, but how unpredictable they can also be. So it's important that if you are in these areas, you're listening to the warnings of those local officials. If they're telling you to evacuate, if they're telling you to get to those safe locations, please heed those warnings. We know that is the best way that you can stay safe. And from a mobilization perspective from the Red Cross, as we get those numbers in, as we hear from those officials how we can best provide that support, we will surge those materials into those areas and we'll adapt our response to the ever-changing needs of these communities. And that's our commitment from an organization, because I can tell you, if you've ever experienced these in the past, you understand just what's at stake. And I can tell you that that's what's going to drive our response over the days, weeks, and months to come.
That's right. It's not just about what's happening now. Folks there are going to need help for a very long time. Jonathan McNamara, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Look, before I begin, I want to say a word about the devastating wildfires that have claimed at least 36 lives in Maui and Hawaii. We have just approved a major disaster declaration for Hawaii, which will get aid into the hands of the people desperately needing help now. They've lost, anyone who's lost a loved one whose home has been damaged or destroyed is going to get help immediately. And I've directed that we surge support to these brave firefighters and first responders and emergency personnel working around the clock there, risking their lives. I just got off the phone before I got here for a long conversation with Governor Josh Green this morning and let him know I'm going to make sure the state has everything it needs from the federal government to recover. The FEMA Administrator Griswold will be in Maui tomorrow, and I've directed her to streamline any process with requests for help and survivors registered for immediate federal assistance without delay. FEMA is surging disaster assistance personnel on the island, and they're going to help survivors get access to federal assistance. And you know, anybody who wants to know out there where to go if this is televised, that they can go to disasterassistance.gov, disasterassistance.gov, to learn if you're eligible for assistance. And I've ordered all available federal assets on the island, including the U.S. Coast Guard, the Navy 3rd Fleet, and the U.S. Army to assist local emergency response crews along with the Hawaiian National Guard. We're working as quickly as possible to fight these fires and evacuate residents and tourists. In the meantime, our prayers with the people of Hawaii, but not just our prayers. Every asset we have will be available to them, and they've seen their homes, their business destroyed, and some have lost loved ones, and it's not over yet.